Hi, this is Ivey, the fulfillment artist, and in this video we're going to be diving into why do people get stressed and anxious and 3 of the best tools in order to overcome it. So the first things first, we're in a society today that is more anxious and more stressed than at any point in time. People can't sit still. We're just constantly on edge because we constantly look at our phones, there's so many notifications. So when we stop and we don't do anything, we have this sort of dependent on having a dopamine hit from checking something. Now, how does this apply to us in life when we're getting anxious and stressed? Well, the truth is we're in an environment now that is more stressful and creates more anxiety than ever before because things change so quickly, things move so quickly, and ultimately we need to look at how we can shift away from that. But it's not only technology. The truth is that when we're anxious and when we're feeling stressed, often it's because there's something out there that is outside of our control. So let me give you an example. Let's say you run your own business and you're getting stressed because the market or the stock market or something is going to affect you. Now you can't control it, but you may be thinking about this constantly and making yourself anxious and stressed. So even though it's outside of your control, you're getting yourself worked up about it. Maybe someone has said something to you at work, or they have said a comment and you just can't get it out of your head and you feel stressed and anxious about it. You can't control what other people say, but you find yourself just reminiscing on this and playing it back and thinking, what could I have done differently? Maybe you're a perfectionist, and maybe no matter what you do, you always get yourself stressed and anxious because you feel that you're never enough and you're always thinking about how can I make it better? So there are so many factors that causes stress and anxiety. But ultimately, what is it that we can do that can actually overcome it in a way that is sustainable? Because there's a lot of people that I work with that are experiencing a lot of anxious and stress, and I want to help you to understand not only it, but how do you overcome it in a sustainable way? So let's go on to the point 1. So the first thing is trade your expectations to gratitude. So let me explain what I mean by this. The reason that we get anxious and stressed is often because there is a result that we want that currently isn't being met. So I'll give you a very fun example. So parents, right? Parents will often say that, oh my God, my child is not getting the grades. I just want them to do well and I'm getting anxious for them. They're not getting anxious for them. They're getting anxious about themselves because they've got expectations about what they want their child to achieve. And ultimately, if they're not achieving it, they then get themselves stressed and anxious. So they have an expectation. Now, if your expectation isn't met, then as soon as that happens, you're going to feel anxious and stressed because what you wanted isn't going to be there. So this is why you've got to change to gratitude, because gratitude is moving into a state of abundance. It's choosing that, okay, no matter what's happening in my life, I can choose to be abundant right now as opposed to living in scarcity. So for yourself, as you're watching this, my guess is that there is something in your life that you're expecting, or something isn't working out as it should, right? And maybe it's causing you a little bit of anxiety and stress. So I would suggest moving away from that and thinking, okay, how can I trade those expectations for gratitude? Because ultimately that's going to help shift your life very rapidly. Number two is going to be diving into your state. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard about state before, let me explain. So state is your physiology, so your body, right? When you are stressed, right? What is your body like? It's tense, it's stressed. You've got your breathing, which is obviously very deep and slow, right? When you're stressed, you're like, of course not. When you're feeling really stressed and really annoyed, you don't even stop breathing. You just keep talking and then you get angry and angry and angry and you forget to breathe. And then suddenly you're just getting red and annoyed and you're stressed and you're anxious and you have no idea what to do. And it's usually what happens. So the first aspect of state is understanding your physiology, your body. How can you change your body to help you relax? Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it is taking a deep breath. Perhaps it's looking up and just going, okay, I'm fine. And you just relax. Whatever it is, just changing that physiology will move you out of feeling stressed very, very quickly. So next is your focus. When we are feeling stressed and anxious, often we are focusing on a future outcome that we don't have control over. So just quickly, the difference between depression and anxiety is depression is when you're focused on the past, and anxiety is often when you're focused on the future. So if you're feeling anxiety and stress, often that's future-based outcome that you can't control, that you're feeling stressed about. So instead of focusing on the future, 2 weeks time, what if it doesn't work out? 1 week's time, what if it doesn't work out? I suggest doing this. Focus on the next step. What is the next step for you to take? Because if you can just focus on the next step, it's going to help you move forward and you won't feel stressed and anxious because it's not going to be this big thing that's uncontrollable. Instead, it's just going to be something that you can take in bite-sized pieces. So it's incredibly important to manage your focus. Now, the last one is your language. So what do you say to yourself when you're feeling stressed and anxious? Often it's things like, oh, why does this always happen to me? Why is this happening right now? This is so unfair. And often we use these sorts of language or these words, and I'm sure you've got your own phrases, and maybe they're slightly more colorful with your language, and perhaps you use slightly more anger in some circumstances as well. But we have habitual patterns with our language that we will say when we're stressed and when we're feeling anxious. An example would be when I used to experience anxiousness a lot, I'd be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, is this really going to work out? I mean, what am I going to do? I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. And I'd say things like that, and that would go into my subconscious, and then I'd start feeling stressed and anxious, and I'd feel myself getting tensed up. So often, actually, why I had a lot of shoulder pain is just because I was feeling anxious and I was feeling stressed. Now, the way to move forward with that is obviously managing your state. So you've got your physiology, your language, and your focus. Now, changing one of them is going to impact whether you're feeling stressed or anxious. The first thing to change is your physiology. It's the quickest and easiest thing to do. If you move your body, if you take a breath, if you interrupt that pattern, it's going to help you overcome it. This is a fantastic tool that I would really recommend mastering. Speaking of mastering, let's move on to our third point, our last thing. It's mastering meaning. So what do I mean by mastering meaning? Well, when we are experiencing these negative emotions, often it's because we've created a negative meaning in our lives. So let me give you an example. Let's say traffic, okay? Traffic, this is a great one because a lot of people experience traffic. If you're feeling stressed and anxious in traffic, what's usually happening is you're late. Oh, this means I'm late. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? My boss is gonna be angry at me. Oh, I won't get the raise that I want, or I can't get to the business meeting. I'm going to be late. Oh, this means I'm an idiot. This means, like, whatever it is, we just make up these negative meanings. Someone pushes in front of you. Oh my God, that guy's an asshole. He means to make me late. That guy means it, right? So often we create all these meanings, and the mind looks to create negative associations in order to make you safe so you can avoid those things. But the issue is we're always looking for things that are wrong when things that are right is also still available. But you need to condition your mind to start moving away from all these negative meanings that you're creating and instead look for more empowering positive meanings. So how do you do this? How do you just master meaning? Well, it's pretty simple. You want to think about maybe. Maybe it doesn't mean that you are a terrible parent if your child doesn't get 100%. Maybe it doesn't mean that you're a bad entrepreneur if you had a bad month. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Because if you can move away from all these negative associations and all these negative meanings that you're creating, ultimately, this is going to be a fantastic tool that can not only help you manage stress and anxiety, but ultimately can help you live a much more fulfilled life. So what I want to say is, no matter where you are on this journey of stress and anxiety, just remember this. Don't label yourself as, oh, I am a stressed person or I'm an anxious person. Instead, move away from those labels and look at yourself as, I've had a behavior that is anxious and I've had a behavior that is stressed, but I'm not a stressed person. Because as soon as you say I am and you use those words, it's becoming part of your identity. And it's difficult to change that unless you're aware and you can make those changes. However, when you change your identity, that's when the really beautiful thing comes, that you get lasting change forever, which is wicked. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Comment with any questions, and I look forward to speaking to you very soon.